This is an empty road. That was fast. So yeah, that's a B58 TU on a stage 1 map. But I promise you that we're gonna do things that I like about this car. I thought of 3 if thought just comes to mind after I said the 3. I'll just go ahead, don't mind me. The first one being, of course, is the B58. It has the reliability of a B58 normally would. As the saying goes of most people, if Toyota is good enough to use a B50 in their Supra, in their lineup in general, I'm okay with having a B58 as an engine that I'll drive my car on. So that also says a lot about its reliability. The Gen 1 B58 has an infamous PCV issue that just smoke a bunch of cloud if you idle it for too long, which is weird, but if you understand the costs, it kind of makes sense. And you can just simply do a PCV delete and then they'll take care of the problem. For the Gen 2, for some of the cars, including mine, has some light oil burning issue. If you keep on 0W20, I recently switched to 0W30 to see if things would improve. Still too soon to tell, so I'll report back hopefully or probably in another video how does it perform on 0W30. And then, so yeah, the B58 reliability is there, the power output's there, it makes super stupid easy power. I'm currently just on a tune, nothing else, a high flow panel air filter, which I won't really consider it as a mod per se. It's simply just because it's not something that would yield you like 15 horsepower, you know. But it is, I guess, a mod because it's aside from the original factory equipment. But anyways, it's currently on a stage 1 tune, no hardware particularly, so I'm saying like no downpipe. But the car still outputs 400 wheel horsepower, and it's supposed to be around 350-ish on a stock tune. I'm talking about wheel horse, so if you see discrepancy, because it's supposed to be outputting, I believe 382 horsepower, that's to the crank. And if you throw in a downpipe and into it on stage 2, you're probably reaching around, not 100% sure, but like I would guess ballpark 430, 440. If you're on 93, maybe you reach like 450. If you're throwing some ethanol, because these engines, like direct injection engine, just from my observation, loves ethanol mix. Don't try to do like E85, a full E85, because it doesn't make sense. E30, E60 tune is gonna net you a huge amount, a big amount of horsepower. Even though there are some stuff that, like, you know, ethanol is corrosive, yada yada yada. But if you keep up with your regular maintenance, you are probably gonna be okay. So that's my first point that I love being a B58. A second point, it's kind of getting like mushy because it's still like B58 related. It's that these cars in general, like the Gen 2 B58, has a lot of popularity from the Gen 1. People just keep breaking record, and the big name people are trying to get into the game to break record. And then Toyota Supra has used the engine in their lineup to reviving the Supra lineup. So there are a lot of people who try to get into the game in terms of tuning, in terms of R&D development for hardware, software, etc. So the popularity of the B58 Gen 1 and Gen 2, it's amazing. It's so amazing to the point, if you need something, just think of any mod that you would possibly need. There probably is something out there in the market. So if you think of like turbo development, turbochargers development, there are a bunch of R&Ds out there. And if you think of like for me, it was like the intake muffler. It was chunky, and then people come up with a muffler delete for the intake, and then just a bunch of stuff with the B58 platform because of its popularity. If you think of something, chances are it's going to have it. But let's say if you drive a Toyota Sienna, if you need I don't know, say catback exhaust, non-custom made catback exhaust, gonna be hard to find. So that's what I'm trying to say for the second point, being a B58. It's kind of mushy being the second point because it's also a popular engine. So that's what I mean by that. And the third thing is that I want to go back to the handling. The car just handled really well, even though it's on stock suspension, stock everything, drivetrain, powertrain. Well, it has a rewrite map, but it handles well when I'm trying to high speed going through a corner. I remember one of the things that I did when I was on my test drive. This car is a pre-owned, by the way, just so you know. I bought it at 50,000 kilometers. Now it's currently sitting at about 82,000 kilometers, so just over 50k miles on the clock right now. So going back to the first test drive that I did like a 60 kilometers, not particularly very fast, but like made a U-turn. The car didn't even spun, so the tires scream a little bit because it was so sharp of a turn that I was trying to do. But overall, it's really impressive on how it corners. You know, again, it's on suspension. If you look at the ground clearance, got a lot. So I'm happy with that because I work on my own car, right? So I need the ground clearance to fit my jack underneath, even though it's below profile. For a daily driver, so-called, this is an M Lite, right? It's amazing. It's pretty much all I can say about the car. Amazing daily driver. If you're into drag strip, drag racing, launching a car, this car is perfect. So next, let's jump into things that I don't like about the car. There are also several of them. The first one being, parts are not particularly cheap. But fortunately, there is a fix for that as long as you own a G2X, likely Gen 2 engine, is that you can source, as long as it's an engine part, by the way, sorry, I should mention that, if it's a powertrain part, you can go over to your Toyota dealership and look for, or actually not dealership, but like the website, you cross-reference the part that's on a Supra. It will be very likely to be the same part with a Toyota stamp on it, and it's also on a heavily discounted price. Why? I do not know, but I work at a dealership umbrella or like network that a Toyota dealership is one of them. So I would go into our dealership parts department, say like I'm doing an oil change. Real life example, again, Canadian dollars. Real life example is that if you buy an oil filter for B58 TU, the Gen 2 B58. An oil filter at BMW dealership would have cost me $35. But if I buy it from a Toyota dealership, even though it's the same thing, it would cost me $18 to $20, depends on which dealership that I go to. Crazy price difference, right? And also, because I am an employee within that dealership network, I have been buying my oil filters for $8 Canadian. And guess what? If you open up the box of the oil filter, it has a paper box, right? Where it says Toyota, there is a sticker. If you peel it off, it says BMW Mini, I want to say Volkswagen, sorry, not. Rolls-Royce is a genuine BMW part disguised in a Toyota part. Way cheaper if you try to buy things off of Toyota. But you also have to be careful because there are some parts actually BMW is going to sell them cheaper for whatever reason. But yeah, you just want to be careful on, or just be mindful of what you buy and cross-reference to see which one is cheaper before you make the purchase. But also at the same time, mind you, some dealership, Toyota dealerships specifically, they may not stock a lot of super parts because they may not just sell as much Supras. You'll have to be mindful of that when you're trying to buy parts off them. It may have to be shipped from the warehouse. It's going to take 2 weeks to a month for them to arrive. Depends on where they have to ship from or if they have it in stock. So that's a hack that you need to know if you own one of these Gen 2 B58 TU1, I guess now it's called. And the second thing that I don't like about this car is the seats. I believe just your regular seats, because I know in North America and in Europe, like European specs, they have different seats for a higher trim. And I think for the North American specs, they only have one, if I'm not wrong, if you're not going for individual stitching, colors, etc. But either way, the seat is just not, like, no matter how I try to adjust it, now I think it's at the optimal stage that I want it to be. But still, it doesn't feel, like, it feels snug, but it doesn't feel comfortable, even though it's a massive improvement from the F30 seats. I had the non-M Sport seats on my F30. That felt like a couch, but like that's pretty much it. And then I have to lean all the way back for me to be comfortable. And these G20 seats, I don't know about like G21, G22, etc. I'm not 100% sure, but these G20 seats are not particularly comfortable. But if I go on a road trip, I'll just lean almost all the way back and then adaptive cruise control. Like obviously still keeping an eye on the road, but like it's more comfortable that way. Also, just like I don't know if it's because I'm short. I'm 5'6". You're average or probably below average Asian height. I'm 5'6", so this car has a lot of blind spots, whether I try to adjust the mirror 2 million ways, and if I try to sit up, and I'll still have blind spots all over. I'm glad that I went with the 360 camera setup, like the surround view setup, because I'm actually able to see the curves. I'm not like required to get up my seats like all the way to see if there is anything that's beside my car, etc. I'm glad and grateful I got the 360 view. I don't know if it's gonna be better if you're like over 6 feet tall, but just from my personal experience, 5'6" of me sitting here, I have a lot of blind spots. So that's related to the seat. So I'm still classified, quote unquote, as the 0.2 that I'm making. 0.3 that I don't like about this car is that, honestly, it's a rattle box. I paid 58 Canadian dollars when I bought it pre-owned for the spec that I have. It's pretty good. But for the premium price I'm paying for a BMW, I didn't expect it to have so many rattles. I kind of hope and kind of hope not to, that you are able to hear some of the rattles through this microphone. That's why I also turn off the active noise cancelling, because I want you to try to hear it, and the engine roars, of course. But it's a rattle box for the price I'm paying for this car. I'm almost feeling like I'm paying to buy the B58 TU, and the chassis just comes along with it. But at the same time, it allows me to create a series, so stay tuned, create a series of attempting to try mitigating. I'm trying to say mitigate because you cannot get rid of rattle, which I'll go over in the mini series that I'll be doing. But as you guys, if you guys watch other videos on a G23 series, you should know there is a buzz sound coming from your dash. That's your the grill for the Twitter, the infamous sunroof rattle that haunts a lot of people, including myself. I try to fix it with different methods. There is still one more for me to see if it's going to, well, actually I shouldn't say fix it, mitigate the problem. So yet to have tried it. Hopefully it's going to work. And then there is some like tapping noise around like the passenger side fronts, almost like the airbag area. And there is some like random creaks here and there. And then there is almost like a popcorn, like popping sound from the trunk, which I'll show you what I did. I completely got rid of it, and that only happens on the 2020 model, by the way. But if you're interested in not having rattle or mitigate the rattle, subscribe to my channel, because I'll have something really special for you in the very soon future. So that's pretty much it for the things that I like and I don't like about this car.